I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everybody this morning and that are here, and folks that are watching. Please, if you've got I'd ask you to put your phone on silent during the meeting. And I'd also right now like to go into silent prayer for a minute. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Roll call. Today we're starting with Commissioner Culberson.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Stephen.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith here. Commissioner Willie Dove.
Here.
And Commissioner Vanessa Reed.
Here.
Morning, Vanessa. And then we're we're going to public comment. I think I only have Mr. Klemp. Going up, sir.
Vanessa isn't here. That's all right. I want to start off with the county attorney. I love the way you come over and pick out a phone that we can hear. Last one, I've known for years, never picked out a good phone. Welcome to the new members.
Good job.
Vanessa.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Willie.
Thank you.
Mr. Klemp.
Go ahead. As I keep mentioning to I'm getting into the school board meetings, they don't meet very often. I think they meet once, 453. They meet once in a month, maybe, when they have some school board meetings. Governments need to start working together. They're not working together. The city doesn't want to look into putting a toll on the new bridge if they ever get the new bridge. That would bring in an extra $5 million a year. The city has school districts. You have 5 schools. These 5 school districts. The kids are yours. The kids are in the cities. And we're neglecting the cities, the schools rather, especially Leavenworth is. They're down $5 million. And in the last 2 years, according to the superintendent, we've lost 10% of our enrollment. Now that's bad. And then I watched this. We never have the ads of when the schools are going to play sports. And I watched where the girls had lost. I don't like to see those sports. I was here and graduated in 1956. And I've loved the schools ever since. So the governments need to get together and work together. Fort Leavenworth needs a toll. They now have rentals to non-military. Can you find out the answers to that? No, they don't tell. Governments don't tell you anything. Schools don't. Counties don't tell you anything. Cities don't tell you anything. The state doesn't tell you anything. Well, I get some information from the state now. But that's...
You got an inside source.
Yeah, that's good.
I've heard that.
Still, wouldn't call me back when he says he's going to call me back.
So it was not personal.
Yeah.
Now they're renting the non-military.
VA is too.
Now that's a military base. Is the city of Leavenworth, the county, anybody getting any money from that? Where do the kids go to school? Can they go to school in Fort Leavenworth? I don't know. Can't find an answer to that. You know, it's a real shame. When you're in the military, you can find out some answers. But if you're not in the military, they hide it all. So where do the kids go to school? Can they go up to Fort Leavenworth schools? I don't know. Can't find any answers to that. It'd be nice to know. And the last thing that's on my mind is can they buy at the commissary? Yeah, I've never felt there should be a commissary. This isn't Fort Higgy up in Oklahoma, up in Montana. Never was. We always had stores here. Back when we had over 100,000 people, we had all kinds of stores, a lot of beer joints, a lot of other things. And we had 50-some lawyers. Can you believe that? Back in the 1800s, 50-some lawyers. Ooh, that's heavy. So
It's a lot of lawyers.
yeah, it's a lot of lawyers. And when I was back about 10 years ago, we had 50-some lawyers. Now we've probably got 150. So I appreciate you allowing me, but I would appreciate to talk, but I would appreciate if somehow you would get involved with other governments to get it to run properly. And I don't know about the 5 minutes, being allowed to talk for 5 minutes that you're going to discuss. That's at least 10 or 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coon. I didn't have anybody else on the agenda to speak, so we'll move on to administrative business. Mark? One second. Jeff, you have any? Mike, you have something?
I just had the NACO conference that I know Commissioner Culbertson and I were going to go, but I understand Commissioner Dove is going to go as well.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Good.
So I guess we just need
Note
to
that.
get that on the.
Yeah, it's I don't remember the date of it right now.
1st through the 4th of March.
1st through the 4th
Yeah.
of March, yeah. So it'll be, if 3 of you are attending, obviously we'll just need to make sure that the meeting for that week, that we may move that to a different
Right.
day so we can make sure we can have a quorum. Because I'd hate to rely on phone service, cell phone service from out there. So if we could just do that, that'd be good.
Oh, you got Mike?
That's all
For
I
now.
have.
I just have one thing. Mark, we've reached out to Middle Regional Council. Mark, I've asked him to do this. We're going to try to schedule to have them come in the next, say, month or so after February to give an update, and also for the new county commissioners, if they don't know them, they'll get to ask some questions and see them. So they'll be scheduled for the agenda if everybody's comfortable with that. I know, Jeff, you sit on it for us, but I thought it would be a good thing because Mr. Dove and Nessa's never had him present to us, so we'll get that in up here if that's okay. That's all I have.
Thank
You
you,
have
Mr.
something, Commissioner Duff?
No, I do not.
Okay. Commissioner Reed, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Seeing there's none. Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
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 Commissioner
Aye.
Reed? Very good. Thank you. Okay, formal board action. Consider a motion to approve the non-sanctuary county proclamation. Before we vote on that, I want to read it so everyone understands what's in the language, then we can have the vote on it. Proclamation of the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Leavenworth, Kansas, declaring the designation of Leavenworth County, Kansas as a non-sanctuary county. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners is aware that certain local governments in the United States have designated themselves as sanctuary jurisdictions for the purpose of declaring their support through the extension of government services to undocumented aliens who have entered the United States illegally. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners is aware that harboring and supporting undocumented aliens who have entered the United States illegally significantly increases the risk of human trafficking, degrades national security, and runs foul of the intent, if not the letter, of the Victims of Trafficking, Violence Protection Act of 2000, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, the Immigration Act of 1990, the Enhanced Border Security and Visa Reform Act of 2002, and the Homeland Security Act of 2002 and the Real ID Act of 2005. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners is bound by their oath of office to uphold and support the laws of the state of Kansas, the laws of the United States, and the constitutions of the state of Kansas and the United States. And whereas the support through extension of government services, especially services of county government, to undocumented aliens who have entered the United States illegally would violate the oaths of the office of the members of the Board of County Commissioners. Now be it therefore proclaimed, the County of Leavenworth County is hereby designated as a non-sanctuary county, and the Board of County Commissioners shall not extend any local government services to harboring or support or of undocumented aliens who have entered the United States illegally. That the Board of County Commissioners shall work to assist local, state, and federal authorities in the enforcement of the laws of the state of Kansas and the United States, particularly as they are recited above. Number 3, that the County of Leavenworth welcomes and supports those alien persons who have entered the United States legally and remain in the United States in accordance with the local and state federal laws. And this, if this passed, will be adopted the 29th day of January. Discussion.
I'd like to move that we adopt the proclamation of non-sanctuary county.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion from anyone?
Well, everybody knows the background. Everybody's been watching the last 5 years how they've millions and many criminals have been flooded in, and the gates have been left open, and now we're having to fix. It's a mop-up operation. We got to fix the mess. So we support fixing the mess.
You got a motion and a second. I'll start with Commissioner Culberson.
And then I had something to say too once we get done with the vote. I vote aye.
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 Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
So I've had a lot of questions in the last couple of weeks about the Core Civic private prison out on Highway 5. For some reason, it's going around that we're in negotiations with ICE.
I've heard
to
that.
Open that back up as an ICE facility. We are not. And I'm just want to double check this with the county administrators for the folks watching. As far as I know, we have not entered into any negotiations to turn that into an ICE facility. I have no doubt they're going to open back up now under the Trump administration as soon as they possibly can, but it is not going to be an ICE facility. It'll probably be just another private prison like it was
Marshall
before.
Detention Center.
Yeah, Marshall Detention Center. Is that your understanding, Mr. Lothar?
Commissioners, as you recall, the private prison, Core Civic private prison, was closed due to the executive order issued by President Biden at the time in like his first week in office, eliminating funding for private prisons. One of the executive orders that President Trump made on the first day in office was repealing that restriction. So I have no idea what the plans are for Core Civic. We're not in discussion with them, haven't been in discussion with them. Really, after the Board of County Commissioners voted that we would not have any further discussion with them, we haven't. So whether it's going to be any kind of a facility, whether it's going to reopen, that is not in our purview and have no idea.
Well, one thing else I'd add to that is we found out last time, it's in the city of Leavenworth.
Yes.
The city of Leavenworth should probably be the first person to contact, and we know how they voted against it last time. But I haven't heard anything except the same questions you've heard, Commissioner Culberson, about that. And I've had people ask me, and I haven't heard anything. It would not surprise me, as Mark is saying, is it doesn't come as a Marshall Detention Center if that's what they decide to do. But I haven't had no communication with them whatsoever.
And
I'm glad you brought that up.
And I'm pretty sure this stems from we wanted to try to keep them open because they're our biggest taxpayer in Leavenworth County.
Yes.
They pay almost $1 million a year in taxes. If we could get tax money out of the other prisons, we'd be sitting pretty good, but we don't. So we were trying to keep our biggest taxpayer alive and working. So at one point, they reached out to us and asked us if we would entertain the idea of them turning that into an ICE facility and housing illegal aliens. We were thinking about the biggest taxpayer paying $1 million, keeping them on the books, 400 plus jobs, all the above. So we were negotiating with them a little bit, but when it came down to the bottom line, and we said, we have to make sure, though, that you're not going to release any of these illegal aliens locally, they would not sign that. So that's why we backed out of the deal, was because they couldn't guarantee us they wouldn't let people go locally.
Yeah,
we don't want to be a border town.
Yeah, one of the things I said, too, during that meeting when I made the motion to cease negotiations was until the southern border was fixed and people are coming across, I'm only speaking for myself, I want no part of it. But I think it's a good point you brought up, Commissioner, because I wouldn't surprise to see some action in a different direction on that. But folks that are listening, Commissioner Culberson brought up a good point. We've had no negotiations with them whatsoever.
Yep. So as far as we know, it's not going to open up as an ICE facility.
Yeah, as far as we know.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else, Jeff?
That's it.
Okay. All right. We're going to consider a motion to approve the updated public comment policy.
Commissioners, as discussed last week and directed, I have presented a proposed updated public comment policy. It increases the amount of time at the beginning of the meeting to 25 minutes total, with each person being allowed 5 minutes. And then at the end of the meeting, as always, we've had the ability for additional public comment for non-agenda items or if we carry over.
Any discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion on it.
Move that we adopt the updated public comment policy.
Second.
Motion is second. Any more comments, discussion? All right, I'll start. Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Vanessa. Okay, item C is consider a motion to approve a 6-year contract with Eagle View to provide ortho and oblique imagery to the county. Good morning.
Morning, Bob.
What I have is a contract, asking for approval of a contract. Currently we have been flying ortho images, so this is ortho and oblique images, ortho images taken straight down from aerial photos taken straight down. Oblique images are taken at a 45-degree angle and capture the sides of buildings. So the differences between those. Currently, we are contracting through Mark and having ortho images taken every 2 years. And the cities are helping out with that a little bit, and we're sharing those images with the cities. This contract would allow us to share the ortho images with the cities. Not the oblique images, but the ortho images, same as we currently are. These images are 3-inch pixels rather than 6 inches, what we're currently having, and they provide ortho and oblique images. The reason we started in on this is we've had a lot of turnover in staff. Many counties have been using these as a way to aid in field inspections and streamline their processes and reduce staff time. And it won't completely eliminate field inspections, obviously, but it will help us and aid us in doing those quicker and identifying properties that need them. The state of Kansas does allow this. They have a special procedure for doing this. We just have to sign something that this is the way we're doing this, doing our inspections. But they have procedures in place that allow this, and they're written into the maintenance specifications. So the contract is a 6-year contract, which allows the county to back out of the contract with proper notification. So we're not necessarily locked in. We just have to pay for the product that has been scheduled or delivered, or has been delivered or performed. Excuse me. It would be $55,998,000 over 6 years. That's 3 flights. The flights would be 2025, 2027, and 2029. The payments would be starting in 2025, and I have an error on there. It's through 2030, not 2029. Would be the payments for those. So you're paying 2 years for 1 flight. We have under this contract, I'm proposing eliminating. We have an open position. It takes us 2 years to train an appraiser. We've had quite a bit of turnover of eliminating 1 position from my office of field staff because we can perform this work with more efficiently. It also eliminate one vehicle we have. The average cost of an appraiser position, benefits and everything, is around $84,000. So this does save us money. The Register of Deeds has offered to pay for this out of the tech fund.
Excuse me, sir. Could you get a little closer to the mic,
Yeah.
please?
That fan runs hard to hear you, buddy.
Yeah.
Is it mic working? Okay. The Register of Deeds has offered to pay for this out of the technology fund. I have a letter here from her. She wasn't able to be here today. She's in a meeting someplace else. It says this concerns my office funding the contract providing aerial photography by EagleView. The contract calls for 6 years of annual payments, $55,998 per year, and funded by a transfer of the Register of Deeds tech funds into the Board of County Commissioners Equipment Fund. This is a necessary service of my office, uses daily in answering research requests. This would also reduce the strain on the general fund. As long as I maintain at least $50,000 balance in the Register of Deeds Tech Fund, it is my intention to cover all 6-year payments of the schedule. That's from Terry Lois.
I've got a question before you any further. First thing, this is not budgeted item. We weren't said, even though you have funds available in in Terry and her department to cover this.
Right.
The thing, and I think this is probably the way that things are going. What I've seen, though, over the years, whether it be manager, mayor, or whatever, is that when we do something like this and we cut a position, 2 years later, I'm sitting right back here being asked to have those positions put back in place, and everyone knows how tough the budgets are, especially the county budgets in the state of Kansas. So my question to you is, once this is gone, I know you can't predict the future, but once it's gone, you don't foresee that position, you're wanting to bring that back to us in a couple of years?
No, I do not.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Questions?
I got a couple questions. You had 3 companies that you took bids from, and this was the lowest bid.
Yes.
Were any of the other companies Kansas-based companies?
No.
So, all right, that was my
Good question.
question. And you say that this will reduce field inspections, but when will you still have to do field inspections, even with this in place?
Well, we'll still have to do new construction. Obviously, you can't. Sales, when property sales, we are required to do to go out and do. We'll have to do an actual on-site because we will have to know exactly what was on that property on the date it sold. Because we have a sale price, we need to account for everything on that property as it sold, because we're going to use that sale price to compare to other properties. So we need to have the data as it sold, and they change quite
so that's
often.
for new construction.
Well, for new construction and for sales.
And for sales.
For sales. So it won't replace those. We will still, look at that, look at the aerial photography, and when there's questions, we'll still have to go out on a parcel by parcel basis and check those if we have questions that are brought up by the imagery.
Okay, and this is a question for Mark, probably. This tech fund borrowed from the Register of Deeds, is that a fairly stable fund? We're probably going to not have to dip into the general fund. Obviously, can't foresee the future, but does it look pretty stable?
So the Register of Deeds Tech Fund, the money in there is generated through fees that are charged to people who utilize the services in the Register of Deeds. I think it's been, while it has dropped off over the years, it's been pretty stable in the last few years. And when I spoke with the Register of Deeds directly, she did believe that it would be sustainable for the foreseeable future as far as this contract goes.
For the 6 years. All right, that's all I have.
Anybody else?
That was my question.
Go ahead, Will.
Robertson?
Go ahead, Will.
No.
No,
You don't have anything? Okay.
Mike asked this question.
Okay. So when I started at Leavenworth County in 1985, when Jesus was a little baby, we were looking at getting these ortho photos done because this is when reappraisal happened for the state of Kansas.
Right.
First thing they had to start out with was mapping. First thing mapping had to start out with was aerial photography. Ortho photos, just the straight down shots that I was talking about at that time, were $300,000 a year for 1 year of aerial photography. So the cost has gone way down from technology over the years. one of the things Bob's talking about, replacing people, this software is not just an aerial photo package. It has additional software in it that would trace building footprints.
Okay.
So just from an aerial photo from the office, you could look at a computer screen and tell from a new photo.
Gotcha.
The software will highlight any new building footprints that weren't there previously. So a person wouldn't have to visit the property. They'll see by the aerial photo, hey, there's a new barn or a new addition on a building. So that there's a lot of aspects of cutting manpower. This photography, this oblique stuff, is pretty high tech. It's the Google Map 3D imaging. When you zoom down to Google Map and you can look at a house from all 360 degrees, that's what this is. So the only questions I had, I'm totally on board. The cost is way down now to where we can't afford this. I wish we could have done it when I was there because it would have helped a lot of things.
Technology, yeah.
I think this is past due being needed. We just couldn't afford it before, and now that we can't afford it, I think it's a good idea. As far as saving money, you're going to save money over manpower versus the software, so I think that is true. The only question I had as far as before we vote on it today was we cost share with the cities and Mid-America Regional Council. A lot of the reason we got a cheaper deal was we would go in with the Mid-America Regional Council when they did the entire Kansas City metropolitan area. So the bigger area you do, the more money you save.
Yeah.
When we were going out on our own, the last time we went on our own, it was about $150,000 a year to get them done. When we joined up with Mid-America Regional Council, that cost was cut in half to about $75,000. I think recently, the last time we flew was about all the way down to $30,000, I think, for the county cost for the ortho photos when we went in with Mid-America Regional Council. So on this project, we're not going in with Mid-America Regional Council. We're standalone doing this on our own project. We cost shared with the cities, though, also, and had them pay part of the ortho photos. So my question is are the cities aware we're doing this, and are they going to cost share with us on that?
We were going to contact them. It was a small amount. I think it was, from what I was
about
told,
$8,000 total.
I thought it
from
was
all the
about
cities.
$5,000,
From all the
and
cities.
then, but that was when Fort Leavenworth was in, and Fort Leavenworth went their own way.
Okay.
So I think it's around $4,000, but
Yeah, it's not a lot. Wasn't a lot.
I wasn't. Yeah, it was.
So, and the second way to look at
we
that.
were going to go ahead and ask them for that same.
Okay. So that's what I was going to ask if you could reach out to them because this is a huge benefit, and I know Vanessa brought up the reach out to the cities with an olive branch. Here's another example of how the county is reaching out to the cities and saying, "Hey, we're going to provide you with oblique imagery. This is high-tech, latest stuff for your city." So each city is going to have this technology, right?
No,
The cities
just the
aren't
orthos,
The
not the
cities aren't gonna
obliques.
get
The
the
obliques are only for the county. Unlimited license for county offices. So
Okay.
anybody in the county can use it, but it's not licensed for the city.
Okay.
The
So-
orthos we can share with the cities.
Okay. Can the
But
cities
not
get
the
a license
obliques.
to use the oblique stuff?
What's that?
Can the cities get a license to use the oblique imagery? Would the cities be allowed to use it also? The
Tag
oblique?
on
No,
with us.
no, they would
Okay.
not.
But they could.
They'd have to reach out to that company
Get
and
their own
negotiate
contract.
something if
Directly
that was a
with them.
possibility.
Okay.
The data exists, but the data is controlled by the Eagle.
So they own it. Yeah, they own the imagery,
Right.
which they're going to resell it to Google.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
Google gets
Yeah.
those for all the
Yep.
different locations in the county. Is they go to the local agencies, and local governments, and local
Yeah.
cities and see if they have it, and then they borrow it first. So I guess what I'd like to see is if maybe have you talked to the cities to see if they wanted to go in on the license?
No, we have not.
Okay. I guess it wouldn't really matter if we go ahead and approve it because they're going to have a separate license anyway.
This is, first we wanted to make sure the board would approve it before we did that. And secondly, I can't imagine the cities wouldn't want it because they're going to have to pay more if they stay at Mid-America Regional Council because we pick up the biggest share of that cost. And if we're no longer doing it, Mid-America Regional Council is going to pass that on to the city.
Yeah.
So
For the orthos, right?
for the orthos.
Right.
These orthos are a higher resolution.
3
You're
amps.
familiar with. They're
Yeah.
twice as high of resolution, and
Yeah.
that's more important in the cities than it actually is in the county
Yeah.
because of the additional development
Right,
they have going
right,
on. So
right.
I would imagine they will cost share similar to what they've been doing.
Okay.
I think, Commissioner, you make a good point. I'd like to see us go ahead and take a vote on it today and then have Bob reach out to them, because I can remember when I was in Lansing, we did cost share with some people, and we jumped all over it because trying to stand alone, like you're saying, what the price used to be years ago is just unbelievable. With technology changes.
Yeah. For instance, Lansing City, if they would have done it on their own, it would have cost them $72,000. But since they went in with the county, it was only costing them like $2,000.
Yeah, I remember.
So,
I couldn't sign that fast enough.
yeah. So I think this is absolutely necessary, and it will save the county money.
Okay. Vanessa, you have any comments on this?
I am ready to vote.
Okay. I like to hear that. Okay. We got a
That's all I
motion.
had.
Okay.
Ready for a vote? I vote aye.
Well, I think we need a motion. don't
And
we?
we had,
Oh, I thought you had a motion.
I don't know. Did we have a motion, Mr. Chair? Okay, then
Make a
I move.
motion.
I move
we're going to get one now.
that we approve the oblique imagery with Eagle View and the contract to be funded by the ROD Tech Fund.
Could we, before you go any further, could we throw that cost in there too? Just so as we get it on
The
record.
55
Yeah.
Per year.
for $55,998 per year for 6 years, with a contract that is that has a termination for convenience clause.
Second.
Motion second. Any more discussion? Mr. Culberson?
Aye.
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 Very good. Okay, we're down to presentation discussions.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob, for answering those questions and getting this started. Good plan. Okay, presentation from Traynor regarding options for second phase of stonework for the courthouse. Come on down, folks. Welcome.
We'd be better if our building wasn't falling apart.
Yeah, I keep looking up.
Sure. You should probably
Yeah,
try
it is
to
there,
rope around
Jeff.
you before you go in there every time.
Okay. We're ready.
Okay, good morning. I am Joy Coleman, and I'm a principal with Traynor. We're an architecture firm, and I head up our preservation team that does old buildings like
Okay.
this. So as you know, we've been looking at the damage that's happened about a year ago and trying to assess what should be done about it and all the options that could be done. I trust that you have seen the presentation packet and gone through it. I won't go through all of it, but I wanted to highlight some things. We are in what we call it design development right now. Schematic design was analyzing all of the data that we took during investigation, and now we're studying options and we're pulling together costs for those options and for all the repairs that need to be done. So numbers are coming in from all the different manufacturers and the labor numbers from the installers. We're not at a final price to recommend today, but we do have some pricing for comparison and some things to recommend to you. As you're thinking about this, remember that the building started its life looking like this brick building with the stone on it and the mansard roof, and then there was a fire, and the new building, what we live in today, was built on top of that. So there are some unknowns that we don't know. We don't have the construction drawings from that time period from 1912. So there's some material behind the limestone and the terracotta that we cannot see. We don't know what it is, and we won't know until we start pulling those broken pieces off to replace them. So what we do know is at the site of damage, we could see inside the wall, and we could see the steel that holds up the terracotta. Now, most of the building is made of limestone, which is anchored to a brick backup, we presume. Most of it's brick. Some of the top might be concrete after the fire. And what we know about terracotta, which is the 7 courses that are up at the top of the building that project out part of the stuff that fell, is that the deterioration in terracotta happens from the inside out. So by this time you see it on the outside, there's already damage on the inside. And we know by looking at this corner that the damage is severe. We see the cracking and the bending at all the corners of the projecting course of terracotta around the entire building. We see it happening. It is in progression on every corner. This corner was the worst, and it fell on its own. We took one other corner down so that it would not fall. But there is stress and deflection that we can see on the outside. That means that the steel inside is failing. So what we believe is that it is risky to leave any of that projecting course in place, even pieces that might look like they're okay today, because they have the stress down the road, down the line, at the corners, pulling it down. So that to us means that steel failure, the rust jacking that we see, is happening because moisture has gotten in there. Terracotta does not like moisture, and it is breaking down the steel. We believe that this moisture is coming in above the terracotta course at the roof and the parapet. The roof is starting its replacement this month. We're having a pre-construction tomorrow to get that material replaced. And then the parapet is letting water in through the open joints that's above the terracotta courses. And it's getting back in between the terracotta and the brick. And then you can see this photo shows kind of this bedding of the wall down below the terracotta. That to us says that the water is back there flowing through all courses and coming out below that terracotta course. So we are also concerned about the flat areas, the flat panels of the terracotta, the lower 4 courses below the projecting cornice. We are concerned about that as well. It has a different anchoring system. It doesn't have rods and hooks and angle iron. It rather has cramp anchors that are smaller, and they hold the terracotta just flat to the building. Okay, so those could be failing too. We don't know. So there's a lot of things that I've said we don't know about, but what we do know is that the entire terracotta, all 7 courses, are coated with a material that was put on many, many years ago. No one in the building any longer, no one now in the building has knowledge of when that coating was put on. But it has trapped the water in, it has plugged up the weep holes, it has adhered to the terracotta glaze, which is the protecting coat of the terracotta unit, and that coating needs to come off. So testing needs to be done to see if that coating can come off. And then if the coating comes off and glaze comes with it, then that terracotta piece in the wall would have to be reglazed. So what I'm saying is that there's a lot of work here besides just removing the pieces that look like they're broken. And whether that work is done now or deferred till after this project's done, it will still need to be done. I'm going to skip this is a good one. So this detail shows kind of how that steel is probably set in the wall and how the terracotta is held up by the steel. When the analysis of the conditions we found is being done, we have our structural engineer look at the issues that we're seeing, the way that the wall was put together in the first place, and talk about scenarios of replacement. So his analysis is that the projecting cornice plus steel has a certain weight, and it is of such a weight that if it were to be replaced with something that weighs less or weighs more, it would put different stresses on the wall and on the building. So he recommends that the new system that goes back in, whatever it is, weigh about the same. So that's information that we need to consider as well. So when we look at all the materials, we ask ourselves, will it act the same as what we're taking off? We know that if we replace the terracotta with terracotta, it will act the same. Another option is a product called GFRC. It's basically a cementitious product that is a shell. It's non-supporting. It looks a little bit like terracotta. You can get the same shapes. It's often used to replace terracotta in situations like this. It is less expensive. It is a lot lighter weight. It would need a more substantial structural steel backup system to offset the weight. Another material that we've looked at is Phoenix limestone, which a majority of the wall is made of Phoenix limestone. So it's, it's a good thing, a material to consider because it is already on the building and it can be replicated to look like the lower courses of the terracotta. But it's too heavy for the projecting course. Any questions so far?
Tell us something good.
Yeah.
So,
I have a question for you.
Yes.
1 second.
When the weep holes were covered, that was the drainage. And then that let the water start destroying the terracotta, correct?
correct.
Okay. You went back and we had several dates where there was renovations.
Okay.
2007 was the last. We couldn't determine when it was blocked.
Correct. In 2007, we believe that was interior only, no exterior work, to our knowledge and discovery. We looked at the project documents from that time period, and there was no exterior coating.
So wouldn't an architect, so it had to be one of these earlier dates. And I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm thinking the 1951 was probably a good candidate that time period.
Wouldn't they have known that it was going to block the weep holes?
Well, in the 50s and 60s, there were a lot of innovations in products that were being made and things done for good intentions, thinking that if I coat this, it will protect it and it will hold it together and it will no longer fall apart. So I don't think that they meant to block the weep holes. They're very small, and if you're not experienced with terracotta, you might not even know that they're there.
Well, it seems like a lot of this is water damage.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And so we've looked at the different options of replacing with terracotta, replacing with GFRC, and replacing with Phoenix limestone. And we don't have the costs in yet, but it's looking like, we know that GFRC is less expensive than terracotta, and the material cost is less expensive. We have to offset that we need to provide more weight. So we have to add more structural steel.
Yep.
So then its price is not drastically lower, where the material price might have been 40% less than terracotta. When you add the steel, it's going to be more like 20, 25.
Wouldn't you keep it simpler instead of, if you go that route, just observation, that when you start putting more into that project, you got more chances of it failing instead of correcting what needs to be corrected and not taking a chance on having to balance it out with the new weight and everything else that goes along with it?
Yes.
Thank you.
So does your calculation of the 20% less, does that take into account the certain incentives that are out there as far as the tax incentives and all those for restoration of historic buildings?
Yes, it does. And what we know is if our solution, our project, puts the building back together much like it came apart, so it looks the same from the street, whether that's GFRC or terracotta, we will get the tax credit of 30% for all the qualified expenses, which is most of them. On this type of project, it's nearly 100% of them. You always want to be safe and calculate like 90% or something. But yes, if that replacement material does not look enough or perform enough like the original, then we will not get the tax credits, and they may even be forfeited for the roof project as well. Because if we change the way the building looks too much, then the state will take it off the register,
Right.
and it will no longer be eligible to receive the credits. But if we replace in kind or with something that looks very much like the terracotta does today, so we can do that with stone, we can do that with GFRC, we can do that with terracotta, then we will get the tax credits, and we will also be eligible to receive grant funding. There's a Heritage Trust Fund grant that is a maximum of $100,000 a year, so those are available as well.
So we don't have any definitive number as how much will this cost the county?
It is tracking very closely to what we estimated back, I say we, but as a team, Aaron and Mid-Continental.
Yeah, we have a couple county commissions that weren't on back then, so you might want to, let me grab my seat, go ahead and throw that number out at him.
Yeah, that number was $5 million.
Your smile left your face there, Mr.
I
Beck.
sure did.
Yeah, with the exterior work, the roof included. So we would love to beat that number, and we are looking for the options that allow us to. Today, while we were sitting here in the audience, we got numbers put in from the terracotta manufacturer and the GFRC manufacturer and the stone supplier. And it might be a combination of materials. If we could do the projecting cornice out of GFRC, those top three courses, and then the lower flats out of the Phoenix limestone, then that is looking to be our least expensive option of total replacement.
But still eligible for all the...
Right. That's in a way that it's eligible for the tax credits and for the grants.
Okay. The big window out here that they're going to have to replace, but where's that made? Have you figured that out yet?
The skylight?
Yes.
Where is the skylight made? Do you recall? The brand?
It's Calwall.
Is it made in the United States?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's what you're going with, yeah.
Excuse me, could we hear from Aaron? I think he has something to say.
Aaron, do you have something to add to it?
I know that their pricing was coming in, and we were hoping to have it to you today. As soon as they get back to the office, I'm going to request that we get all pricing that they have up to date so that I can get that information to county admin, so then next week or the week after you guys can give us direction on which way you would like our RFP written for the outside of the courthouse. As soon as we have numbers that are fairly solid numbers, you guys can give us a direction on which way you would like an RFP written that either includes tax credits or does not include tax credits. But either way, we're going to give you guys the numbers so that way you can work through and decide which way and direction you want to give staff so that we can work towards that RFP.
Let me ask one thing, being a simple person. When you talk about the 30%, is that coming off the $5 million?
It is, the tax credit is paid after all the work is done. So
But does that reduce the cost
it reduces the cost because you get the money
by
back.
30%, most likely?
And it covers the full project, including the roof project. That is.
So we're not looking really at 5 if this goes through. It's
Right.
yeah. Okay.
So the as far as the expenditure on the project, are we going to be able to spread that out? Are we going to be able to spread that out over, say, the 5 fiscal years? And is that going to be part of your plan?
Commissioners, that's our plan. That's not their plan. Their plan is to get the project going, to write the documents. As far as the financing goes, that's on our side.
Plan, I think.
That's on our side, and we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Right, and that is the plan right now, correct?
Yes, we will. We're able to address that internally.
Right, and that's what we've discussed.
Yes.
I think there was one other option, which is the non-tax credit option.
Oh, correct. So the projecting cornice is the piece that we looked at. What if it didn't project? What if we took off the failing terracotta and we put something back that did not have this projection? What if they were flat pieces out of GFRC or stone? And that is the least costly option in terms of the majority of the building. It gets a little weird at the porticos, but the battery's running low. That option, of course, it has the lowest pricing in terms of material and labor for that area. I don't know how it affects the wall yet because our structural engineer has not analyzed it. It wouldn't have the uplift of the projecting cornice made out of something lighter, so it might not be a problem for the structural engineer. But it would not receive tax credits, and the building most likely would not be able to stay on the National Register or the State Register of Historic Places because you've changed it drastically. And the cost estimates that are coming in, there's a certain amount of base work cost that has to be done no matter what. You have to take off the terracotta. You have to put something back to seal the exterior of the building. To do that work, it's heavy work. It'll take a while, likely scaffolding and general conditions for the general contractor. So these repair work of the damage that has been done to the water inside or by the water inside the wall. So all those costs have a substantial number. The material that is chosen to replace the terracotta is probably 25% of the total cost. So it's not that the project cost is nothing if we don't do the historic route and have a solution that matches what you have now.
You have a ballpark figure if we went that route?
No, I don't. It's coming together, but I don't have it here with me today.
We're still waiting on that. And then there's also that projecting. The projection also serves a purpose, right? It's not just for appearance sake.
That's correct. It shields the lower wall below it from rainwater. It sheds off the water so that it doesn't hit the facade full on. Of course, you've seen a lot of buildings that have no cornice, and so rain sheets off the building without interruption, and that will, do other things to the wall. It will make the mortar wash out a little faster than if you have the cornice. So it does add that protection.
And this is a question maybe for Aaron, and might be for your group, but I understand we're looking at the entire, we're talking about the roof right now, but we're evaluating the entire building. Is that this group that's also evaluating the entire building? And what's the time frame on that?
Well, it includes the entire building. So the areas below the cornice would be the east and west porches. There are some stones that are cracked and stressed and breaking down. So we have asked the stone supplier, who is Phoenix marble, it's original limestone, to look at those pieces as well and put them in their cost.
I noticed there's some cracking on some of the columns. Is that also repair work that?
Some of it is, and some of it's the original makeup of the stone. What's unique about Phoenix marble is it's very similar to what's on the Missouri Capitol, which is Carthage limestone. They come from the same area of the country. They have these stylites, or they look like cracks, but they're actually seams between bedding planes of the stone. So some are cracks and some are not. The columns tend to have the vein cut is what the column stone is called, and when you see the line, it looks like maybe a crack down the height of the column. It is, in a lot of cases, it is one of those natural seams of the stone.
All right.
And the worst damage to the actual stone, like Phoenix stone, is at the two porches on the east and west ends of the building. And those are conditions where they try to span a pretty large distance with relatively thin vinyl pieces, and those have buckled in places. But with those, it would be actual masonry replacement or stitching.
But so when you're done, we're going to have an estimate on every defect of the building, pretty much.
I would say you would have an estimate on the exterior masonry defects. We're not looking at the windows or
The things we asked you to look
Yeah.
at is what you're looking at.
Right. But
Which
the
is
exterior.
enough, which is enough.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay.
So this does not include window structure?
It does not.
But you would note if there was any like failings in
Oh,
the
of
window
course.
structure and notify us that we had needed to look at that, correct? And you've not noted that so far.
Well, in 2000, we got all new windows, so they're only 24 years old.
Let's stay positive, folks. We're already at $5 million, trying to get 30% down. Let's stay positive.
Windows are fine.
And just a note for the taxpayers, we did raise the mill levy 1.8 mils in order to make these repairs.
Over the
So
years.
it's a lot. The taxpayers are already bearing a lot.
Okay.
So what I'm waiting to hear is what the bid will be, not replacing terracotta, because where I'm at is if it's $5 million to make it look like it did before, so we can stay on the National Historical Record, and it's only $1 million to just make the building safe again, but we'll fall off of the registry, that's what
Those are numbers.
of the
Those are
opinion.
numbers we need to have in front of us. Yeah, you're right, Commissioner.
Because we'll save $100,000 from the grant from the National Historical Society, but it'll cost us another $4 million. Doesn't make any sense. We don't have the luxury to make something pretty right now. We just need to make it safe with the budgets that we
Yeah.
got.
Liquid nail.
That's
Okay.
just my opinion.
I'll just give my opinion on that is
When's
if
the
we can, I'd like to preserve the historical, but if it's dramatic difference,
We can fit in the
$4
cushion.
million
building,
is a very dramatic difference.
we haven't heard the numbers though.
and we can fit everybody over at the Cushing building, so we could turn the keys over to the Historical Society if they want to fix the terracotta.
Well, I think there's something they said to honor this building and us be in it, but we're jumping ahead of
We're
ourselves.
going to have to
Yeah.
hear
We got some more
another
stuff. We need to
constituents think.
yeah, we need to have some numbers come back. Aaron, do you have something?
The only question I have is, Joy, when do you see us having hard numbers that I can present to the board?
If we are looking at all three options and cost of each, we need another month to do that. We have ballpark numbers now of the flat material costs, but there are so many other things that go into the full project to get an idea of what the bid is going to be. That is what we need to analyze and pull together.
Mark, anything?
So we won't bring it back until we have numbers, because you need to have the information before you can make a decision. we wanted to get the presentation out here so you know
Right.
what we're dealing with, obviously. And we were hoping to have some numbers for you. And keep in mind, these will be estimates. You won't know the actual cost until we bid the project. But our estimates on this one for the roof were pretty close. I think we were maybe a little high compared to what the bid came in at. We had a really good bid on that. But
Okay, good enough. Vanessa, do you have anything you would like to add on this?
I think she may have dropped off. I think I heard the phone.
I'd hear that 5 million. I really can't blame her. Okay, is any other comments from? If there's not, I've got.
Would you like a comment?
No, I don't want you to make a comment. Since we're in a presentation, Mr. Klemp, did you have something you wanted to mention? We're not talking about dissertation. We're talking about just a comment.
Yes. Are we losing the historic value?
Maybe.
Could be.
Could be.
Hopefully not.
That's one of the best words in the country today, could be. Well, maybe you could just close this down by the old junior high, big building, you know. But what bothers me, nothing ever came up in 1978 to 1982. When did it start? Nothing came up in 1992 to 1996. Nothing ever came up. Why is that? Surely something was going wrong in those days.
Part of the building hadn't fallen off yet.
So it was never brought up to the commission. Never. That's a shame. I'm not blaming these guys. They weren't even born probably back then.
You're probably right.
But it would be nice to know that we're inspecting things.
Yeah. Well, I think we can honestly say, and we can honestly say this has brought to some attention to some things. One of the things that we had to look at though is you've only got so many funds, and like sometimes you hurt yourself when you don't put money into things that you should be on inspection and stuff like that. And that's how we had to reevaluate everything we've been going forward, which Mark's done an excellent job, and this brought it out even clearer. I don't think we'd even talked about it at the section where Mike sat hadn't fallen off of the building. So your point's well taken.
And the last thing is, we now have a state appraiser. We don't have a county appraiser. There's a state appraiser. They're going to pay any money on this? They own the whole end of down there. There's no county.
Yeah.
It's all state.
Right.
And it is a money-grabbing thing to the state ought to be approached.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clem.
yeah.
Okay, let's move on. The quarterly reports.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, folks, thank you.
Thank you.
It's hard to come bear bad news all the time. Court reports, solid waste. I didn't see you back there. Come on up. Good morning. I need the muffler.
So for the first quarterly report, since you're new to the board, I always go over last year's.
Pull the
numbers
mic.
From,
We can't hear you.
Pull the mic to you. This is on solid
Railroad
waste.
ears.
This is on
Not
solid
what my
waste.
grandkids say.
This is on solid waste.
So for my first quarterly report of the year, I always go over last year's numbers versus the year before. So we serviced 2,325 more customers in 24 over 23. The tire tonnage was down by 11 tons, so maybe the ditches are finally getting cleaned up. Special waste is down by half. I'm not really sure why. Our cleanup residents is up by 206 residents and 90 tons. All of our permits are up to date, and our household hazardous waste appointments are up by 137.
Tammy, those the cleanups that you mentioned, that's the annual cleanup that we move that people can do throughout the year.
Yes,
versus,
Jeff's baby. Yes.
Just wanted to make sure
Baby.
that
Working.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's business as usual. It's been really cold, so numbers are down a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of snow too, I heard. That might cause a little bit of problem. We have any questions? Tammy, we have any questions?
I got a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
Can you kind of go over, like, typically KDHE's role with you every year? Or how do they interact with you? How often are they out there? How often do you have contact with them?
They inspect us once a year. They're due anytime. It's
They
always
just show up unannounced?
unannounced,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
But we're always KDHE ready. So, we have 2 permits. I have several due dates, but those are all met every year. Just paperwork.
Do you hear from them periodically during the year about any issues, or is it pretty much just these permits? That's the only interaction you typically have?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's all I have.
Any other commissioners have any questions? If not, then we'll move on. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Short and sweet. Okay, Council on Aging, come on down, Connie. Your turn to barrel.
Good morning.
Morning.
Short and sweet. I heard that. So, the Council on Aging services are growing year over year. In the fourth quarter, we ended up delivering 110, almost 111,000 meals, which is about a 5.2% increase. So,
Amazing.
as we've discussed every time I'm here, we are an aging population. So every year we have more folks aging into our services, and that 5% is in keeping with the number of year-over-year trips we provided for our transportation department. Almost 17,000 trips provided in and around the city, as well as a few more out-of-county trips now that the Cushing medical offices have closed and many of the doctors moved outside of the county. So trying to keep as many people with their doctors as we possibly can without affecting the budget too much. Volunteerism continues to be at an all-time high. We have about 147 active volunteers, saving the county nearly $450,000 a year with the time and the vehicles that they use, the time that they give, which is really amazing. We could not do what we do with especially our Meals on Wheels program without the number of dedicated volunteers we have in and throughout the county. We were recently in need of 5 volunteers in everywhere from Tonganoxie to local routes, and we had those filled within 5 days. That is my staff calling on their friends and neighbors, people answering some online ads that we have that are always out for volunteers on different nonprofit platforms, and folks are just willing to help. We did come in about 118% of our expected revenue, so I've detailed down for you kind of in the middle of my report. In the fourth quarter, we brought in nearly $82,000. That's our big fundraiser, as well as our Christmas project, what we bring in through our gift shop. And then we have some monthly donors like Good Shepherd Thrift Store in Tonganoxie that help us out as well. We also just Monday received $94,184.49 from the state of Kansas, which was called core funding to help with some administrative costs, and we use that to reimburse the county for some salaries to support our nutrition program.
Was that a grant, Connie?
What's that?
Is that a grant, or is that just, how'd you apply for that? How'd you?
It was actually applied for through the Wyandotte Leavenworth Area Agency on Aging. That money was granted to them, and as a part of that, our part is 22% of whatever Wyandotte County receives. Okay. So,
what I was trying to say indirectly is, I've said before on other departments, a lot of folks that work for the county are really good about getting grants.
Yes.
And this is just another example.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, so it is grant season, so that'll be on the next quarterly report as we're writing all of those now. But we continue to be able to provide the services that we do because of amazing partnerships that we have throughout the county with individuals who are coming in and offering services. So we can do those at low or no cost to our constituents. Working with the Alzheimer's Association, we hope to work with the National Kidney Foundation to offer some other things, but we just keep bringing in more people. We're going to be adding another yoga class on Mondays by popular demand, so we're seeing about 250 people a week at the Council on Aging.
That's pretty impressive. Just to go back, I remember last year we thought we'd be at 100,000. I think it looked like 105. And for people to realize 110, almost 111,000 meals.
Yes.
Folks, that's a lot of meals. I mean, that's really taking care of the community. And something else I have to speak on, and I say it all the time, the volunteers that will step up to the plate whenever they're needed. I mean, this is just unbelievable that what they do. I don't know what kind of Kool-Aid you got them drinking, but I want you to keep it up, okay? But honestly, I want to say thank you if they're listening to what they do, because we couldn't do it without them.
Grape.
We absolutely
Grape
do.
Kool-Aid.
Yes.
Thank you.
Fruit punch.
Okay, does anybody have any other? Go ahead, Mike.
Of your 111,000 meals, what percentage would you say of those folks are at the poverty line or below the poverty line?
About 40%. We have about 40% of our constituents that struggle with the $3 per meal to pay that. And that's the reason for the additional fundraising that we do to make sure that no one's ever denied a meal.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if you were, I know we've talked about this before, but how many would you say of those folks, that's many days their only meal?
Right about 40%.
That group
would also
that same
indicate
group.
that is the only meal they receive. And then that's also a check-in. We found recently folks who had fallen, who had had a stroke, things like that. We are that daily contact for emergency contacts.
And how many times does that happen during a year, would you say, that we find that we were able to help somebody?
Probably that where we do a 911 or a welfare check, at least 5 a month. Sometimes more at the holidays, in the winter time when folks are getting out less and people are visiting less. My folks are finding those folks more than we ever want to.
Yeah.
But we are a lifeline, right?
That's a lot of folks that we're helping. I mean, you're doing a great job. I mean, that's really, you can't say enough about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
the crew
and I give you that number there, year-to-date new clients, so you can see 259. That's attrition off the program and new people coming on the program. So we lose to death or folks who move or go into a nursing home about 300 people a year.
Good thing we put you in a new building.
We have the homeless, facility. What do you interact with them at all as far as Meals on Wheels?
Not for Meals on Wheels. Unfortunately, we do interact with them. We have caretakers who put their parents out on the streets. Recently this year we've worked with Miranda at the homeless shelter because one of the folks who did receive Meals on Wheels, her son dropped her off at the park, and she was homeless. And so we knew that she wasn't home when we were there to deliver her meals, and that's how we came to know about her. So unfortunately, we do have instances of elder abuse in that way that they do become homeless because they're turned out.
If you're homeless, are you eligible for Meals on Wheels?
Typically, we require a permanent address for Meals on Wheels. So we don't deliver to the homeless shelter, but we did during COVID when folks were being relocated to some of the local hotels. We did deliver there because for a time that was their address. So Meals on Wheels, our program requires a permanent address.
You have to have a permanent
Yes.
address.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it and appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. And
Happy
county
to do it.
commissioners have any more comments or questions?
No, my comments are very positive toward
Yeah.
individuals that dropped their parents off at a Park.
Yeah, them too. Thank you. Excellent job again.
Thank you.
Tell the crew to keep up the work. Very proud. EMS and Health Department, come on down, Jamie. Let me say something before we get Jamie. Every year I have to go in and have some things done and stuff like that. I don't like having blood drawn. So Jamie overheard me one time and said, Mike, come on down here, we'll take care of you. We can run our insurance through it. Now, I'm not supposed to be announcing this, but not like that. And I said, okay, here we go. I never even felt it. What I'm trying to say is we really got some talented people out there doing that.
You didn't feel what?
I didn't feel the needle, the stick, whatever. I'm telling you, might go get poked. I'm telling you, you won't feel this.
I'll think about it.
Anyway, Jamie, y'all did a good job. Let me help you, Jamie. Y'all did a real good job, and I appreciate that. Go ahead, sir.
Mike, Commissioner Stephen, you may feel it. I'm just saying it may be a little different.
Mike will feel it. In fact, he may be looking at Mr. Dow and all of a sudden, and me and Vanessa standing there with the needle.
Large gauge.
Get a running start. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jamie. We're through.
Good morning, Commissioners. EMS, your report. This is the standard report that I give every year. For the first quarter, it just outlines year-end from last year for 2024. We remained within budget authority in that, and one of the others is on the user fee. We were able to collect, with the additional transports and such, we were able to collect some additional revenue this year to help out in that aspect. So we were about 9% over, which is always a good thing. It does follow statistics and type of call, obviously, on how we can bill. So that does fluctuate year to year, depending on type of call and how we can bill, whether it's ALS or BLS. And the difference on that is ALS is advanced life support, BLS is basic life support. So that's how those user fees are collected. As you can see, there's about 136 calls of transported patients addition over the 2023 to the 2024. Again, on page 3, it's just more statistics as we move through on that. Page 4 is what we've added over the requests of commission to kind of see in their jurisdictions and their areas of where calls are kind of happening. That's all calls, whether that is a standby to that area, whether that it doesn't matter. We're moving a truck, we're responding to those areas, so we're just kind of showing in that. Vehicle maintenance, we were able to maintain.
Excuse me one second. Excuse me. Commissioner Culbertson, I know you've been working on something. Do you have any updates on Fort Leavenworth and the costs associated with that?
Yeah, for the ambulance service?
Yeah.
I was going to talk about that as soon as he's done.
Okay.
You want me to? I'll
Yeah,
give you an update
okay.
on it. Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Number 3 is the vehicle maintenance. We were able to, even with our aging fleet, we were able to stay within our vehicle maintenance, which was a positive. One of the things on there that you're aware of, we have been ordering ambulances far in advance because, again, it's 2, 3, 4 years out. There was a delay on receiving the 2023 and 24. We were supposed to receive those at the end of 24. However, the hurricane did impact the actual AEB ambulance facility. They had to shut down. They had to do building repairs and such before those ambulances could be completed. We can tell you as of today, last week, we received both of those trucks. So those ambulances are here. They are being outfitted with all the radios and such. So our hopes is next week those will be put online and we will at least have those 2. And we are being told that the 2025 ambulance is on track for probably June or July on receiving that unit. So the 2026 and 2027 are approved. Those are the 2 ambulances that were approved in the fall to be placed in order. So hopefully at the end of next year, we should receive at least one of those. And then the following year, we will receive the 2027. This time last year in January when I was given the report, it was kind of grim. We were talking about lack of personnel and positions that were vacant. I'm here today, knock on wood. We have filled those spots. So with the changes that we did to some of the salaries and such, we were able to attract and bring in paramedics into our service. And we were able to fill those. The last 2 remaining right now are in orientation and moving through their training. So hopefully here in the next few weeks, they'll be up and running and we'll be at full staff. That's a very good thing for us. One of the things I did post in here, and I think it's important to recognize, and it highlights some of the issues that we're having on attracting. In the state of Kansas, 79.8% EMTs renewed. That's a reduction of 464 from prior years that did not renew their EMT, and 142 paramedics did not renew their EMT in the state of Kansas in the last year. Doesn't mean that they may not in the late or whatever, but at the beginning of the year when it's required to do it appropriately, 142 paramedics let their certification go for some reason. And that's a problem already when you're talking about a program that takes 2 years to become a paramedic on top of already having to have your EMT. So you're talking about 2.5 years of schooling before you can replace that paramedic. So that's a problem where we're seeing a reduction throughout the state.
Let me ask you a good question. If they went to another state, would they have to get recertified in that state? So they could probably drop yours and then go, or could they carry that? I'm wondering why. That's what I guess I'm getting at.
Right. What there's called is national registry. That's a national testing certification. And then when you go to that state, you then certify in that state. That's what allows you for reciprocity across state lines and such. So, again, we may have somebody that is a paramedic in the state of Kansas, but then reciprocity is over to Missouri. Okay. And again, they let their Kansas license go, but they're still a paramedic. And they have gone to another state or another area. Okay. And we've had some of those leave and gone to the East Coast, gone to the West Coast, gone to wherever. But that's still a loss of a paramedic. That's a large number.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
We did replace out our cardiac monitors. We have the latest and greatest EKG machines, the cardiac monitors, defibrillators. It's kind of an all-in-one device. We are in the process right now of training on all of those new monitors. That's about a month-long process to make sure everybody has that muscle memory over to that new machine. So we're working on that. I did want to highlight and give kudos to my staff during the snow event that we had at the beginning. Our crews showed up. They were still responding to calls. We averaged 42 calls a day throughout that, which is even up over the 35 calls a day that we normally average. There was 119 calls just during that 3-day event. 87 of those had a patient. We transported 71 patients out of that during that snowstorm. You can kind of see some of the statistics that I placed in there. We did have ambulances obviously become stuck at different locations throughout, slide-offs, things of that nature. We did have to call on tow truck assistance. So Logan's Tow had to come out on 3 different events to actually unstick our ambulances at times. And then we did have one ambulance slide and strike a curb that had some damage to one of the wheel wells and such. So all in all, I am proud of the staff. They showed up. They still came into work. They swapped out. We had full station coverage during that event. And we still had people having medical emergencies and such, and we responded to those during that event.
That's great. So, that's great, Jim.
Any other questions that I can entertain for
Any questions?
I've got a comment.
Yes, sir.
I received a call from a constituent, and it's not often that we find someone that's willing to step out and says, "You guys have done a wonderful job." They've before my mother-in-law passed, they were at my house at least 3 times in 1 year. Okay, and their service was highly recommended. I'd like to read a letter if the doesn't mind. I won't give you the person's actual name. It says, on Monday evening, December 9th, my wife, Carol, unable to stand up in the bathroom and many attempts to assist her were ineffective. I called 911 to ask EMT assistance. The response was nearly immediate from the Fairmount Township Baser Station number 1. The EMT was, I will admit his name, Mike B. The gentleman was 26 years EMT experience, and the woman who values her independence and a fault was reluctant to allow herself to be transported to a medication facility for evaluation. With great skill, empathy, and warmth, Mike gently led her to the realization that going for evaluation was the most proper course of action to take for her. Mike also coordinated her admission to the St. Luke's Community Hospital System in West Village in Kansas City, Kansas. They enabled her to be placed in another of their community hospitals, which provided the most focused medical care we've ever seen over the next five days. And I noticed this individual, his wife was very, very, very ill, and I know her too, so I understand her reluctance. Mike and his team are a major asset to our county and commissioner. Dove, I asked, will you take office next week, move to recognize this individual by the commission? I don't know what the practice is of letting individuals know just how valuable that they are, but I would like to see that through and have that individual here to actually receive that congratulations and accommodations from the commission. If that's
Absolutely.
if we can arrange that, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
And these individuals I've known for a while, and I've known Mrs. For a while, and she's a grandmother.
She wasn't going to be moved. Is that what you were saying?
The grandmother. I'll just leave it at that. Okay.
We like to hear good
If we
stuff.
could
Yeah.
make that happen.
Yeah, Jamie and Mark, we love hearing that. Thank you for sharing it with us. Okay, is anything else for Mr. Jamie?
Did you have something, Jim?
Oh, what is he going to do? Health department next?
Oh, help you. You want to
Yeah,
do it?
go ahead.
I mean,
Okay.
we're on
Well, I got
EMS,
something.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. The General Beagle put together a committee to meet with me about getting funding from the fort for our EMS service. Because a brief overview is, for instance, they send their high school kids to Leavenworth High School, but Leavenworth High School doesn't get any tax money from their parents living on Fort Leavenworth. So Leavenworth School receives a pilot check to pay for those kids to go to the public school. I'm asking for a similar situation with our EMS. Fort Leavenworth uses our ambulance service, but they don't pay for it. So we're just asking them to pay for it. So General Beagle put together a committee to meet with me. So far, I've met with them several times. They agree that they should be paying something. We're just working out the details on how much. I'm meeting with one of the committee members this afternoon to talk about it some more. But we should have something figured out by the September deadline, one way or the other.
That's great, Jeff. Thank you for taking care of that, taking a look at that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I spoke to our recently elected Senator Klemp about this, and he said that he would help any way he can.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I'll reach out to him too. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, I have a couple questions. On that cost to renew the EMT and paramedics, is it costly? Like when I renew my real estate license, it's $500. Is it pretty costly?
It's per certification, and a paramedic every 2 years is $50. So it's a reasonable.
Okay, so
certification.
It's not a huge amount.
Not a huge amount of money.
Before the budget process, can you get us a comparison between the counties on your wages so that we don't fall behind? I mean, we obviously we had to do catch up last time, and we don't want to have to get caught in that situation again.
Sure.
So, also, I was going to ask you. I had a constituent contact me, and I think Mark gave you a heads up on this. Is the health department policy to not resubmit insurance or Medicare claims more than one time?
Correct. We submit the to insurance, and depending on what happens with the EOB that comes back, if it's a denial, then we notify back to the client that it is they can go through an appeals process on their side of it. We do not file appeals back because we've already received back that it is it's a denial. If it's an error on our part because of how it was billed or it was a coding problem or an issue, that's not a denial yet. It's come back that there's an issue with it, and we can go through the process of refiling that claim back with the insurance. If it's an appeal process, we try to work with all clients and get them what information they need and kind of help guide through that process. But we do not file an actual appeal because they have to put in additional information that we wouldn't have access to.
Okay, so sometimes like insurance will just for whatever reason, it'll just kick it back. And then,
We evaluate all that come back on why it was kicked back.
okay, and you have certain codings that you use. I was going to say, this constituent, and I told him that there's not a blanket policy that you don't resubmit things. But he was apparently told that they don't resubmit things by somebody in your office. Or do you have one person that handles that, or how many people do you have that handle? Like the insurance claims?
On the health department side or EMS side?
EMS.
Okay. On the EMS side, I have a whole billing staff. So I have a coder, I have the data entry, the biller. There's a process of people that goes through that. Again, if it comes back to us, and we will evaluate anything that comes back, if it is majority of the time, it comes back is it's a denial, and depending on what that denial is, majority of it is because not medically necessary. It's what the insurance says, especially if it's Medicare or one of those. If that is the case, the constituent or the patient has to file their own appeal on that they believe that it was necessary, and they would provide the additional information to the insurance company through the appeals process. We will help them walk through that on our end to the best of our ability. But again, we cannot file an appeal on behalf of that individual. They have to file the appeal.
Okay, and is it handled differently on, you said
I just wanted to know who I'm talking, what side I'm talking about.
Is it pretty much the same, though, the way it's handled?
We don't bill a whole lot of insurance on the health department side because that's through different programs and such. There's certain insurance and certain programs that there's no insurance being billed. So that's why I wanted to know what I'm dealing with.
Okay, so when we have the ambulance runs, do you know how much we're writing off on insurance, or we just write off on total cost that we don't get reimbursed?
$2 million a year.
Is that right?
Roughly.
$2 million a year?
I didn't hear what
He said $2 million a year.
How much is not covered by insurance company?
Yeah, how much is getting written off?
a majority. CMS guidelines, which guides majority, is 20% usually right off the top of most ambulance rides, and that's why our fee structure and everything else takes into account that is going to be part of that process. So when we structured our all of our payments and everything, it's based off of a lot of the CMS guidelines of what's allowables, and then also on the Blue Cross what allowables are, because that's a little bit on the higher side, so that we can receive in what those two entities are going to be able to pay us, so we don't have astronomical write-offs that are. I can bill $1,000, but if Medicare is only going to pay $400, I'm automatically writing off $600, and there's no point on doing that and then trying to have that potentially pushed onto other individuals that may not have insurance, because once you set your guidelines on what are allowables, if I'll use an example, Commissioner Smith goes for a ride, he has no insurance, and
you give him a shot.
I've got 2 rides in the last few years.
Right. If he has no insurance, he's going to get the full $1,000 bill. But if I'm doing it off of allowables and everything else, then he's going to get the same as you would as an insuree.
Okay.
But he would have to cover.
So the folks that are going and don't have insurance, how many of those people are we writing off? Most of them?
No, they get a bill, and
they get a bill,
and they'll make payments. We have payment structures and such with them as well. And then we also use the Kansas Set-Off program, which comes back to taxes as well, to pull back on if they were going to receive anything back in taxes, then we would, in the refund checks.
So they get a lien against their taxes? Is that okay? And some of it goes to collections as well, or no?
Just the Set-Off program is always
okay. Yeah, that answers my question. I appreciate it.
Questions? Okay, is there anybody? Are you ready to move on? Go right ahead.
Okay. Again, similar format for end of the year for the health department. Again, expenditures on the health department is a little different because it's also based on the programs that we're providing and such in that. Again, user fees is depending on the programs, depending on what's being used. Grants is our primary modality, if you will, for revenue streams. We are mid-year for the health department right now. We follow the state, so we're at the 6-month mark, and we're providing all of the reports into the state so we can receive our mid-year checks in for grant revenue. Staffing, we are still struggling at getting a registered dietitian into the WIC department. We were fortunate enough, we had an IOC, which is intermittent on-call individual, that's all they really wanted. She's got a young child, doesn't want to work full-time, but she was already in the WIC program up in Minnesota. They relocated kind of to the area, and she's filling the gap right at the moment for us, which is not the ideal, but it's better than nothing right at the moment to help kind of offset that, because as you can see, we did have a little bit of reduction in WIC clients, and we can attribute that, I believe, with losing that secondary registered dietitian in those appointments over about the last 5 months. So we're in hopes that we can find the registered dietitian, the WIC, but as of right now, we're at least have an IOC in there. Aid to local grants, that is a majority of our program that we are operating under. That's where all that grant funding comes from. We will be putting that in by March. I'll be in front of you beginning of March for the signature. That is every year.
Okay.
For those grants that we're going to be applying for, it's about $600,000 worth of operational revenue. One of the big ones, family planning, we had, if you remember, we kind of fought and we were able to increase that. We used to receive right around that $40,000 mark. This year, we were able to kind of push that up to about $81,600. And then we were notified for some additional competitive process grants in there and we just applied for an additional $40,000 on top of that. So I'm hoping to get that program up to where it is to truly cover that entire program, which would be about $120,000.
And see, Jane, that's one thing I was saying about departments. You're definitely including that. These grants help out so much. So for you folks to go out and get them, it's money. We don't ask, we don't get. So a lot of the county departments have really done a good job, and yours is also one of them. So thank you.
We have a WIC audit coming up in March, and then the last is we did apply and we received the workforce development grant last year, and it's about $150,000. One of the programs in that is for updating your electronic medical records program software. We operate on a very antiquated old software that I don't know how long it's going to continue to remain in function. One of the things that this is really forcing or going after is updating that into. So we're looking at potentially spending those dollars. It's very specific on what we can spend those dollars on. And one of the things we're looking at, and we're having some demos come in for an upgrade to our EHR, our EMR stuff. So electronic medical records. It's got to be able to patch into state programs, all sorts of things. It's got to talk to all of those. So it's pretty complex. That would be a huge thing for us to not have to, at the county level, pay for that transition over. We would have grant funding that could cover it.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Any
question? Couple questions. Family planning services. Can you tell me, is that primarily focused on families, or is it, what percentage of that would be minors getting contraceptives, or how is that distributed? Is it through the schools, is it through the health department, or how do you get folks that are your clients for family planning services?
It's everything from walk-ins to phone calls to referrals. It's just a program that, again, we've had for a very long time. We have meetings with school nurses and such in case there are individuals that are minors that are looking for those services or needing those services. Those referrals sometimes come from school counselors, school representatives, school nurses. They'll send them our way. But we have Sparrow Clinic that gives us referrals over. There's a lot of different referrals that come in because, again, it's a program when someone is underinsured, not insured, those type of things. covers those type of needs in our community.
And what percentage would you say are minors?
I don't have that number to really tell you right off. I can look it up and get it back to you.
I'd appreciate that. Also, just to reiterate, I know I've covered this before, but we got a new commission now. We don't do abortion or abortion referrals. Or any contact with that, the health department does not participate in that, correct?
Correct. That's not part of the...
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No questions.
Jeff? Ms. Vanessa's gone. She couldn't give one with you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate the information.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, now we go around the horn. Jeff, you got anything for us?
Not really. Had the Mid-America Regional Council meeting yesterday with Commissioner Stevens sat in on the Zillow. They didn't talk about anything that affected Leavenworth County. And then I have that meeting this afternoon over the EMS thing with one of the committee members. That's about all.
That's going to be great. Mike?
I just have this. This is the property tax cap. I gave everybody a copy of this, but just a little note on this under Section 1. The final taxable appraised value of real estate classified in any subclass and personal property classified as mobile homes used for residential purposes shall not increase by more than 3% or a lesser percentage as provided by law in any taxable year. This is a change from our bill last year. It says that the percentage that the legislature can provide would be they could provide for a lesser percentage than 3%, and that would be by statute. So even if this constitutional amendment's adopted and say it's working really well with 3%, but maybe we can give the taxpayers an additional reduction, maybe down to 2%, the legislature could do that without going to a constitutional amendment. They could just do it by statute. So I think that's a pretty good change. And then on the last page, if you down on the bottom of page 4, unless the legislature enacts provisions that provide for exceptions. So this amendment gives the legislature a little more leeway as far as what they can do with with property tax valuation, because when it's in the Constitution, it's really hard to change.
Anything else, Mike?
That's all.
I just have a couple. I had Senator Jeff Clint reached out to me last week. We had a good hour and a half meeting, a lot of things that were brought up, and Mr. Dove, you had said one of them already on some things that he's on. He's hit the ground running. The other thing is, once a month I have a lunch with the city administrator in Lansing just to see what's going on, if we can help each other, and that went very well, but there was nothing, no main issues. That's all I have. Commissioner Dove, do you have anything?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Vanessa's off. Okay. We take a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Culberson?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, aye. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.